Welcome back, focused learners. So today, we're diving into an absolutely fascinating explainer on a truly groundbreaking intellectual project. It's called Toward Echo by Ryan McLean. If you've ever found yourself wondering how we might capture the actual journey of human thought, not just the polished final answers, but the messy, real, on-the-ground process of actually figuring things out, well, you are in exactly the right place.
Right out of the gate, we kind of have to challenge the standard narrative of artificial intelligence. We're constantly sold this idea of AI perfection, right? Like it's some magical black box that just effortlessly produces flawless answers. But what if real wisdom requires something else entirely? Think about it. What if an AI could learn to think by studying a durable, translatable archive of how a human being actually reasons, struggles, and, yeah, absolutely, makes mistakes? Section 1. The Path to Echo and Overcoming Intellectual Amnesia. Okay, let's dive right into this because to really understand echo, we have to first look at the problem of intellectual amnesia. Human knowledge is just vast, right? And our active memory is, well, it's incredibly limited. Ryan McLean's goal here isn't just to build another database. We have plenty of those. It's to build a path. It's a way to capture the actual journey of human thought so that future generations and future AI don't have to just start from scratch every single time they ask a question. Looking at the architecture here, it perfectly illustrates the sheer scale of Ryan's corpus. And notice the central cycle. Echo is definitely not just a search engine where you type a query and get a document back. No, it is an environment of formation. It's a living feedback loop where human encounter, reflection, and documentation are all synthesized with AI retrieval and translation. To make this all super accessible, the author actually uses a brilliant metaphor for his kids. He calls it Angela's Explainer. Basically, think of Echo as the world's biggest, weirdest notebook. Now, why build this at all? Because Ryan literally can't carry thousands of complex research papers, theological distinctions, and technical diagrams in his active memory. If he tried, his brain would just turn into this, well, a haunted filing cabinet full of floating, totally disconnected facts. Echo is basically the tool that remembers exactly where everything is hiding. Moving on to Section 2, Lessons from the BBS and Persistent Communities. So let's step back in time for a second. Way before modern social media, there were these early internet communities where knowledge was inherently communal, and most importantly, it was persistent. The source material shares this fantastic anecdote about the old bulletin board systems, or BBS. Just imagine someone spends 3 whole hours trying to fix a computer issue, literally yelling at the machine, only to finally realize a single cable was loose. Well, in a BBS, that entire messy, frustrating, conversational thread was saved. It stuck around. So the next person to log on, who might end up acting like a total online expert after being there for just 12 minutes, could read that thread and, just check their cable first. Saving that messy process completely prevents the next person from repeating the exact same 3-hour mistake. And this actually directly connects to a much older vision. Melville Dewey, yes, the famous librarian, noted way back in 1901 how modern communication allowed things that were planted like trees to travel about like birds. It's just a beautiful visual anchor for Echo's whole mission. Knowledge absolutely shouldn't be trapped in a single rigid location or some academic silo. Echo is specifically designed to make deep, complex human reasoning searchable and highly mobile across totally different domains. Okay, Section 3, Wisdom in Translation and the Division of Labor. So here's the big question. How do you prevent the AI from just completely taking over the whole process? The absolutely crucial point here is this strict distinction in roles. On one side, you have the human. You have Ryan. He brings the faith, the lived experience, the love, the prudential judgment, and, crucially, the accountability. Then, on the other side, you have Echo, the AI. Its job is strictly to search across vast amounts of material, compare distant passages, organize ideas, and translate them rapidly. The human brings the actual wisdom. The AI basically acts as the rapid translator and a massive historical memory aid. We actually return to Dewey here with this fascinating quote from 1889 about the librarian militant. And in the context of the Echo Project, this just perfectly captures Ryan's active, totally accountable responsibility over the work. The human doesn't just passively sit back and accept whatever the machine spits out, right? The human must be militant in their editorial judgment. They have to ensure that for this specific project, the AI remains a servant ordered by the author's Catholic intellectual framework, rather than letting it act as some kind of independent, infallible authority. The source material gives us this incredibly vivid metaphor for this kind of accountability. Just imagine building a science fair volcano with the help of a tiny, brilliant robot in a little lab coat. The robot measures everything perfectly, right? But when that volcano inevitably explodes and covers the school principal in red foam, the robot is not the one getting called down to the principal's office. You are. Why? Because you're the human who actually put your name on the project. Authorship matters. The human is the one who bears the real, embodied consequences. So let's see how this actually builds into Echo's translation capabilities. Because of that strict division of labor we just talked about, Echo can brilliantly translate a single concept across multiple, completely different domains. It can take a wildly complex idea from theology, seamlessly translate its core structure into computer science terminology, and then distill the whole thing all the way down into an Angela's explainer for a child. And the best part? It does this without flattening the underlying truth or getting totally bogged down in dense academic jargon. Which brings us to Section 4, the value of mistakes and learning from failure. This really brings us to the core of how Echo handles failure, because there is a massive, massive difference between erasing our intellectual history and, actually learning from it. Think about it like this. Say you're drawing a picture of a dragon, and you accidentally give it 7 legs. Oops. You quickly realize dragons probably shouldn't have 7 legs. So what do? Do you just erase the paper so hard you tear a hole in it just to hide your mistake? No. In Ryan's system, you draw the corrected 4-legged dragon right next to the old, messed up one. This simple act sets up this incredibly profound philosophical framework for intellectual iteration. Because look, most AI systems out there are heavily trained on option A. They pretend to be magically flawless, they scrub all the errors, and they present this perfectly clean surface. But Ryan's method is option B, preserve the mistake. By keeping that 7-legged dragon right there next to the 4-legged one, the AI maps out exactly how the correction happened. It learns why the first idea failed and exactly what distinction ultimately fixed it. I absolutely love this quote from the text. It says, "A mistake with an explanation is basically a lesson wearing a fake mustache." Isn't that great? It just perfectly cements the idea that durable, documented errors protect future inquiry so much better than erased ones ever could. It essentially teaches the AI to recognize the costume of a bad idea when it inevitably tries to sneak its way back into the conversation later on. Section 5. Inherited truth and tracing concepts. So, as we look at this philosophy of no originality and the absolute importance of tracing concepts backward through history, let's walk through what they call the sandwich of synthesis analogy. It goes like this. If you make a sandwich, you don't run around claiming you invented bread or cheese or mustard, right? Those things already existed. The real intellectual work is recognizing what ingredients actually belong together to make something coherent and good. Deciding to add pickles? Well, that's your responsible judgment call. And citations, they're really just how we meticulously record the historical transmission of those ingredients. True intellectual work, much like the methods of Thomas Aquinas back in the day, is all about faithfully synthesizing inherited materials. It's definitely not about claiming you somehow invented the concept of lunch. And this idea perfectly builds on this fascinating historical image of Melville Dewey's early classification index from way back in 1873. You see, knowledge is historically genealogical. We are always building on the past. In the Echo project, AI is basically the tool that helps us search backward. It helps us find the earliest recoverable expressions of these big ideas, literally linking ancient traditions and early library systems directly to cutting-edge modern technology. So, we arrive at our final question. We've seen exactly how Ryan McLean is building this incredibly accountable, iterative archive, where his own mistakes are carefully preserved as lessons and where his very human judgment constantly guides the AI's translation. Honestly, it kind of makes you think about your own intellectual legacy, doesn't it? If an AI preserved your reasoning, every single draft, every glaring error, and every hard-won correction, what exactly would it learn from your mistakes? It is just a totally fascinating thought to leave you with today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and as always, keep learning.